James Ernest of the Grueling Truth here with author Ian Thomsen, author of The Soul of Basketball, the epic showdown between LeBron, Kobe, Doc, and Dirk that saved the NBA. So tell us, what inspired the book?
Well, it was that year when LeBron James left Cleveland in 2010. In the summer of 2010, he went on TV, did a TV show called The Decision, and basically changed his life, not for the better. This was a guy at age 17. He'd been named the chosen one on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan. And James, when you think of Michael Jordan, you think of a guy that was universally loved, and people around the world cheered for him. Even though he won all the time, they would tune into NBA games hoping he would win. By going on TV to announce that he was leaving all his fans in Cleveland, and that was the only area of the country he'd ever lived his whole life, LeBron changed that Jordan dynamic. Instead of tuning in to see the best player win, people were now going to be tuning in to see the best player lose. They were booing the most talented player in the league. That's not a good model for any business or any sports league. And the NBA at that time, on top of everything else, was losing money. They were claiming $1 billion worth of losses over 3 years, and 22 teams were losing money. And the lockout was on the way. The NBA was going to shut down its business after that season, in the middle of a global recession. So right now, the NBA seems to be on top of the world, and LeBron James is driving a lot of that popularity. He's won 3 championships. He's the signature player of the league. He really has become his generation's version of Michael Jordan. But back then, in 2010-11, he was a 25-year-old guy who knew what he wanted to be and what he could be, but didn't know how to get there. And so this book is about the best player in the league struggling to figure out how to get back on track and how to become what they know they can be, what they want to be, but needing help to get there.
So it sounds like this book is about like the pinnacle time for the NBA. Basically, it could have made or broke the NBA if it would have went the wrong way.
Yeah, like if I always wonder what would have happened if LeBron had gone on to win the championship that year as the villain. He ended up losing the championship in the 2011 NBA Finals in that season following his TV show. His Miami Heat were heavily favored to win the finals, and they were upset by Dirk Nowitzki and the Mavericks. And after that loss, LeBron went back home to Akron and took stock and thought about all the changes he needed to make. And when he went back to the finals the following year and won it, the first thing he said was, losing in 2011, losing to Dirk Nowitzki, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. That's what LeBron said. It forced him to look himself in the mirror, look in his own heart, and figure out how to be better and learn from the mistakes he made. So what if he hadn't been forced to learn from those mistakes? What if he, in spite of his passive play in that 2011 finals, what if his team had won anyway and he had been rewarded and hadn't been forced to make those changes? Would the NBA be as popular today? I don't think it would be. I think it's popular because LeBron became this champion in all kinds of ways, and it's all because of all the hard lessons he learned during the season that the book is all about.
Do you feel that currently the NBA is the top league in American sports?
Well, I think it could be someday. Right now, the NFL still is, and I mean the numbers clearly say that the ratings numbers and the amount of money that's brought in. The NFL is still the top, and college football, for all we know, might be number 2. But everyone knows the troubles that football as a sport is facing right now. The football, what's the future? The medical future for football. And then baseball is the other competitor for the NBA, and the issue for baseball is it too slow as a sport for this generation, as things are going. So you do hear a lot of people talk about the NBA ascending with the possibility of becoming the number one sport in America. That will take care of itself. The one thing the NBA has going for it is it's a global league. It's the one sport out of those three that has a chance to grow around the world. And Dirk Nowitzki is a guy that drove that. By winning the championship in 2011, he showed that an immigrant could come to the NBA without having attended high school in America, without having attended college. You could grow up in your country anywhere in the world and have this dream of becoming the best player in the NBA, of becoming the leader of a championship team. That was not possible before Dirk came along and proved it was. And as a result, there's Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Those guys are known around the world. Those are the most important players in the NBA history. But in world basketball history, Dirk Nowitzki is one of the most important players for what he did in that season.
Do you feel that Yao Ming is right up there with him, despite not winning the championship like Dirk did, but just his scope, his reach?
Oh, I think that's a great question. And yes, China's the largest country in the world, and basketball is hugely popular there, and so much of that has to do with Yao Ming. Absolutely right. And who knows what he would have been able to do in the NBA if he'd been healthy. It's the same question you can ask about Bill Walton, who might have been the greatest player ever if he'd been able to stay healthy. Nonetheless, in spite of all the injuries that he suffered and all the limitations he had physically because of that, Yao Ming still accomplished a lot. And he's going to be right up there as well as one of the great players, one of the most important players in world basketball.
You believe that is a big part of the popularity nowadays with the NBA is because, like you said, how it's gone global, where unfortunately Major League Baseball has become more regional than it is even national anymore?
Yeah, exactly. I think there has to be more NBA fans around the world outside America than there are inside America. If you look at the NBA Finals, something like 20 million people watch the NBA Finals, and I imagine that there are more people outside America watching basketball, watching the NBA than there are in America, and that's only going to increase as the technology brings people around the world closer and closer together. As TV turns from a set-top kind of thing to an internet-based form of communication, and we become more interconnected, all of that's just going to help the NBA. And the fact that the NBA is really open-minded with video, with its video content. So if you're a fan around the world, the NBA will let you use their video to do whatever you want. You can use it in any form you want, and that helps spread NBA content around the world. The NFL is much more closed off. They own their rights, and they don't like to share it as much, but I think the NBA does that, hoping that fans around the world will communicate with each other and use social media to increase the popularity of the league.
Exactly. They don't have that without written consent of the NFL at the end of it. You never hear that at an NBA. So we've got LeBron, we've got Dirk. What about Kobe and Doc?
So Kobe wanted to be the next Michael Jordan. He was the first guy that was anointed. When he was 19 years old, he was even though he was coming off the bench with the Lakers in the second year in the NBA, he was in the All-Star game in New York City at Madison Square Garden facing off against Michael Jordan, and it was seen as a passing of the torch kind of thing. The problem for Kobe was that he was never going to be as popular off the court as Jordan. He turned into a polarizing figure. His whole divorce with Shaq, with Shaquille O'Neal, the way their championship team was broken up, and then Kobe was accused of sexual assault, and around that time as well, when his relationship with Shaquille O'Neal was dissolving. So you put all that together, he was never going to be the next Michael Jordan as a commercial force, but he aimed to be Michael Jordan on the court, to be this ruthless competitor. And this was really important. I think we're all going to look back on those years after Michael Jordan was gone and the league was searching for the next Jordan, and all these young players were coming in as instant stars and getting instant money, instant fame, without having really earned it. Kobe Bryant was there to force this young generation to focus on the court and to say, if you're going to win, you're going to have to go through me, and you're going to have to play to my standard. And I think he really set a very strong, firm example for the young players coming along, including LeBron and including Dirk Nowitzki. In that 2011 playoffs, Dirk's Mavericks had to beat Kobe Bryant's Lakers. Kobe Bryant's Lakers were the defending champions. They'd won the last two championships, and they were favored to beat Dallas in the playoffs. And the Mavericks smoked them, swept them. And Dirk really raised his level of play and the level of play of his team, but I think he was forced to do that by Kobe Bryant, by having to rise to the standard of Kobe. So Kobe was that hard-edged guy that helped create this atmosphere that ultimately would draw the best out of LeBron, that would force LeBron to raise his level of play as well. And then you asked me about Doc Rivers. Doc was the coach of the Celtics. And the Celtics were the defending Eastern Conference champions, and the reason the three guys in Miami got together in the first place, the reason LeBron, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade wanted to play together, was because they'd all been losing to the Celtics in the Eastern Conference year after year, and they realized the only way they could beat the Celtics is if they got together in Miami. And so Doc Rivers Celtics became the rival in the East to LeBron's Miami Heat, and they were really offended in Boston by the behavior of Miami. If you remember, there was a pep rally in Miami, and the day after the decision, and there was all this white smoke, and
not
LeBron's
one,
promised.
Not two, not three.
Thank you. That's exactly right. And so all those false promises that LeBron could never keep, those really offended Paul Pierce, especially at the Celtics. And he told me that he couldn't believe what he was seeing when he was watching that, and so they really wanted to teach LeBron a lesson. And Doc Rivers, as coach of the team, was a guy that wanted the Celtics to think about things like that. He wanted them to be aware of the larger world and their role in it. And he talked about his own problems with racism, Doc did, and connected his players to larger issues in the world, larger themes. So the book is called The Soul of Basketball, and a lot of that has to do with Doc Rivers and his point of view that, you know, in football we hear coaches talk about distractions, and we want to close your players off from distractions. Doc embraces those distractions. He wants his players to think in the larger terms, and I think that's great for basketball, because basketball is a symbolic sport. It's an American sport, and it symbolizes American themes.
Do you feel that this book changes people's view on Kobe a little bit, because he's not the bad guy in it?
Well, maybe it changes views a little bit in the sense that, well, you're right. That's a great way of putting it, because I refer to Kobe in the book as the bastard. One of his first chapters is headlined "The Bastard," and I was actually talking to Doc Rivers about this, and I said I think Kobe's going to like that. I think Kobe's going to like being known as the bastard. And Doc said Kobe's absolutely going to like it, and he pointed out that all the great players on the court, they were bastards. They were hard guys, ruthless guys. And so this idea that Kobe actually upheld the standard, I do think that's going to change some opinions of him, that he's not just a scorer or a guy that's looking out for himself. He's actually upholding the standard that helps raise the standard of the rest of the league. And when you look at LeBron James now, he's a bastard too. He plays like that also. He's very ruthless. He was not known as that in 2010-11, but he surely is now.
So tell us, who's the target audience for the book?
Well, I think it's anybody that likes sports or the NBA. The title of the book speaks to something I'm trying to get at. There's so much money in sports, and it's such a business now, and it seems to affect everything about the game. And I just don't think that's why fans watch. I don't think fans care about basketball or the other sports because of the money. They put up with the money and agents and leverage, power, struggles, and all that kind of stuff because ultimately they want to be inspired. They want to watch the games and be inspired by what they see. And that's why all these guys play. That's why they coach. That's why they get into it in the first place. For sure, they want to get their share of the money. They want as much as they can. But that's not what drives the best of them. The best of them are at it because of this love. They're pursuing something that they almost can't explain. And so that's really what this book is about. It's about the search for something more valuable than money. And that was the search that led LeBron to Miami. He needed to win. Even as he was sabotaging himself by going on TV with a decision, his instincts were correct. He didn't know how to win in Cleveland. He didn't have good enough players around him to win in Cleveland. He needed that in Miami. And then on top of it, he was getting all the hard lessons from all his rivals. And he was absorbing those and learning from them. And they helped him become a better player. So it's the target audience is really for fans, not only America but around the world, who are looking for that, who want to get back to this idea of sports is more than a business. And again, for sure it's a business. There's so much money, but it's more valuable than a business. That's really at the core of it.
And if fans are wanting to get more of your basketball insight, what social media should they check out?
Thanks very much. Yeah, my website, ianthomsen.com. I'm on Twitter at Ian Thomsen. That's IANTHOMSEN. And I've also started a newsletter for international NBA fans, for fans around the world, explaining American basketball from the ground up. It's called NB Answers. And I've just started it, and I'm looking forward to trying to help develop the global community for basketball.
Sounds great. Let's get your final thoughts before we let you go on where people can get the book.
Yeah, you can go to my website, ianthomsen.com, or anywhere they sell books. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your local bookshop. It came out this week, and we have high hopes for it.
Sounds great. Hopefully it'll turn out just like the Tiger book that was on the show a couple weeks ago, head #1 to the New York Times bestsellers, and I think this one will. After reading it, it is a phenomenal book for fans of the NBA. Thank you, Ian, for coming on the show.
I really appreciate that, James. Thank you very much.
Welcome. My pleasure.